I've been shopping for a second glider to finish out the porch project in the cabin in the country, and I hadn't had any luck. And then one day, David shows up with this in the back of his truck. He found one, had a garage sale, $30. It needs some love, but yeah, this is awesome. I'm gonna renovate this and bring it to the cabin. So the glider came with a frame. The frame was in good condition, although very rusty. And the little swinging bars that connect the frame to the glider were okay, but all the bolts were almost rusted through, so I ended up cutting them all off. And I don't know what happened to that video, but it's gone. So here I am doing preliminary sanding with a random orbital, just trying to get all the loose, flaky paint off. Okay, about 35 minutes with the random orbital. 1, 2, 3, 4 sheets of paper. And I need to get in these corners because I need to put some epoxy and some cloth in here. I think the wire cup on the grinder is going to be the best bet, although that's not my favorite tool. I think it's the proper tool for this job. So let's go see what I got. So we're flipped upside down now. The bottom was screwed to this flat bar, which was welded to the side, but it's all come loose now. So I just need to get it clean enough where I can put some epoxy and some cloth and have it hold. I think there was a bolt here that's missing. Well, no, it's kind of there. Anyway, we got to patch it up so it doesn't fail, and it won't be out in the rain anymore. It'll be on the porch. So I guess it lasted this way like 60 years. Maybe it'll give me 20 more once I patch it up. Okay, I switched wire brushes. This one's done. This is a cup. Let's see if we can't like get some of this rust off of here. So maybe it'll stay when I paint. We got the seat back and the seat cleaned up with a wire cup on the grinder. Pretty nasty job. I'm gonna go ahead and spray with some Resto now because it's mostly exposed metal. While it's probably warmer because I've been grinding on it before the rust has a chance to set in. It's very damp today, very humid. I'm gonna go ahead and get some paint on it real quick. Drove around town to try to find some fiberglass tape and nobody had it. So I got some fiberglass cloth. I'll cut it into strips, but that leaves a jagged edge. I would rather have the tape, but you know, it's just an old swing for the cabin. So I make some epoxy resin with some thickener, and I'm going to put in all the cracks and then come back after the fact and put the tape on top. So this is what I want. I want this to be sealed up. It's only 55 degrees here, so I'm kind of pushing the temperature limit of good work. I'm gonna do it anyway. Okay, I need a bunch. Need a bunch in here. So anyway, I want to do that all the way around. That's the worst spot right there. The rest of it is going to go easy. So I sealed this joint all the way around, but it's not going to cure today because it's very cold. So I'm going to flip it over and work on this little problem on the bottom. This is oil-based clay. I'm shoving in this rot hole so I have something to support the wet fiberglass cloth. It's some people call it plasticine, but it's oil-based clay. It comes with lots of different brand names. And I heated it up in the microwave because it gets really stiff when it's cold. And I'm just kind of trying to shape that pipe. So I'm going to lay the cloth over it, and then the cloth will have the strength but I need something to hold the shape.
So with the
that's what I'm doing with
swing
this clay.
upside down, you can see how badly corroded this bottom part is. Probably water condensate sat in there, or rainwater, I don't know. Anyway, I got I'm gonna put 3 layers of this 6-ounce cloth. I'm gonna go mix up some epoxy, and I just warmed this up with the torch, try to make it spread a little bit better, because epoxy, when it's cold, it's real thick and gummy, and I want it to be spreadable.
So this is just neat epoxy, just no thickener, just epoxy. I don't mix a whole lot at one time, and I put it in the microwave in my wife's studio and warm it up, because it's really cold and it gets really stiff and it's hard to spread. It's kind of like honey when it's cold. And I did warm up the steel with the torch, so I'm just trying to spread all this out. I use a lot of epoxy for this kind of stuff. It works. I mean, this probably will never be as strong as it was originally, but this is not so much a strength issue as kind of a safety issue, because those old rusty edges of the steel where it's rusted back, those things are kind of deadly, and they'll get you. So we're safening it up, and we're definitely making it stronger. Now the other glider that's already on the cabin, you've probably seen it. It was given to me. It was in Coach's yard, and it was in way worse condition than this. And we patched it up with fiberglass, and it's doing great. So 3 layers. You can see why I was trying to get fiberglass tape. It would have been, you can buy it 1, 2, 3, 4 inches wide, and it's hemmed, so it doesn't come apart. This stuff, as soon as you cut it, it starts fraying apart, because there's no mechanical bond between the threads that are going east-west and the threads that are going north-south. They just start falling apart. Now, if this would have been chop mat has a glue in it that kind of keeps it together. And that glue is dissolved by the polyester resin. I'm not sure about the epoxy resin, but so it stays put and till you start putting resin on it, and then it gets real limber. So it's really good at going around really sharp corners, or up in inside corners or outside corners, because basically all the threads come unattached from each other. It's not as strong because each thread is only like 3/4 of an inch long. So for this project, either one would have worked. This is what I found at the auto store. We no longer have access to any kind of plastic products here in Baton Rouge, and it's crazy, because we have manufacturing. We have people that make fiberglass pipe and make fiberglass stuff for the chemical plants, but they're not a retailer. They won't sell. So if I want to buy a lot of stuff, I got to go to New Orleans, which is kind of pitiful, or go to Amazon, which is what I usually do. But I was able to find this cloth at that AutoZone.
So I cut these strips on a bias.
Well, it's just kind of messy with the strings hanging off the edge.
But they'll bend easier around the corners like this than if I would have just cut them straight. And they don't unravel so bad if you cut them on a bias. So I'm going to go mix up some epoxy, and we're going to try to reinforce the joints that have failed on the swing.
If I would have not cut this fabric on the bias, I would have had trouble wetting it out between the flat bar and the seat and the side. It has to make a couple of different bends, and the bias stuff bends better. And in the background, you can see the frames. I got them kind of cleaned up. And
this side had not failed, but I went ahead and put some cloth between the side and the flat bar. This side had failed, so I have 3 layers of cloth on that side. 2 between the side and the flat bar, and 1 between the seat and the flat bar. I'm gonna flip it over and put cloth on the seat side too. Same thing up in that corner. Maybe all the way across the back. Let's see how it goes.
So the seat part of the swing in this back corner, boy, you can really see what's going on, huh? I had completely rusted out, and it was like a hole. So when I put the thickened epoxy, it kind of gave it some body, kind of strengthened it up a little bit, but it left the jagged sheet metal sticking up, so I had to knock that down before I put the epoxy and cloth on there, or it would never have laid flat and not done any good. Same thing all over again. I put 3 layers on this side that had failed, had rusted completely through.
So the frame for this blue glider is exactly the same as the frame for the glider I have at the cabin. And it's made by Bruning, I think. Can't really read it. It's on there. Philadelphia, PA. So I'm gonna get the grinder with the wire cup, my least favorite tool. You kind of clean these up a little bit, and there's nothing wrong with them. They're not broken. They're ready to go back together. They're just ugly. So we're gonna kind of smooth out the paint and put some paint on them. Okay, we are wire brushed. That was not a pleasant endeavor, but they came out pretty good. So we can paint. All right, frames are done. They have a coat of primer and a coat of brown paint. And because this spray paint was so easy, I don't use much spray paint, but it was really easy. So I bought some more. And this is ready to paint. And because I'm covering white with a dark color, I had a couple of cans of spray paint in the cabinet and I just used them all up. One was brown, one was gray, and one was green. And I was just trying to get some paint to cover the white, and then that showed up a few bumps, so I sanded that off. So now we're getting ready to put the final spray paint on here. And I went to Home Depot to buy the cushion that they said they had 11 of in stock, and they didn't have any of them in stock. So I'm gonna have to mail order cushions. So since I'm gonna have another glider, I need 2 more of these little end table coffee tables like I made for the other glider. They worked out pretty well. Pulled out a piece of pecan. It's a little over 15 inches wide, so I gotta rip it because my planer is 15, and then I'll plane it, and then cut 2 2-foot tables out of it and make some legs. And I'm hesitant because I'd like the top to be the same elevation as the table we already have, but I can't remember what it was. Maybe I'll just make it a little taller and I can cut it to length when I get there. Anyway, I gotta rip it and then plane it and then cut it to length. And I keep thinking, I keep hoping that at some point I'll pull boards out of that pile and they won't be infected with that little worm that's making holes in all my pecan. This one doesn't look like it, but I don't know. I see these little bitty holes. I wonder if that's where the bugs get in and then they grow. I don't know. Anyway, I gotta rip it first, then plane it, then cut it to length. Colin's at the cabin. He called in some measurements for me. I want to make these tables match the other tables as far as height goes. So the legs are 1 7/8 to 3, and it's 28 inches from the very top of the table to the floor. So I'm making these 29, and I can trim the bottoms when I'm done. Yeah, this is my 5 degree that I like. So I'm going to cut this 5 degree and this 5 degree, and then cut 4 legs. This is not a real pretty piece. It's kind of funky right there, but that's okay.
Here I am cutting and sanding fake live edge. The edges were live edge, but not totally because I had to rip part of it. And end grain is never live edge. If you see a table with a live edge on the end, somebody faked it. While I'm faking it, I think it just makes it look a little better. And then I took a 60 or 80 grit on the random Marlboro and kind of cleaned them up. And then they're ready for some calculations.
Okay, this is the angle of the leg. It's 8 on 11, and I can't really measure to this because it's not uniform. So I just centered it on the table as best I can, and I measured off the bottom of the table. So now I'm going to go on this one. 8's on the table. 11's on the table. 8, 11. This is going to be the center line of my leg. I'm going to do the same thing over here. This edge is pretty straight. This edge is not, because I cut it on the bandsaw like a madman. Okay, 8 to the edge of the table. 11 to the edge of the table. So my little tabletops are 1 inch thick. So I want this little tenon to be 1 1/16 deep, just to make sure it's deep enough. I can always sand off a 16th. So that's how high I got the blade set. And these are exactly 1 inch wide. And I want the tenon to be exactly a 1/2 inch wide because I got a 1/2 inch router bit to cut it with. So I need to cut a 1/4 inch off of each side. I think I have it set right, but I'm going to run a little piece of scrap through there and then measure what I got left and see what happens. So it comes out measuring less than a 1/2 inch. So I scooted the the guide over, and I'll cut the other side. I'm just going to keep trying until I get it exactly a 1/2.
So once I was happy that the fence was in the right place to cut a 1/2 inch tenon, I cut all the legs, ripped both, I don't know, what do you call this cut? Anyway, I cut both sides of the legs, and then I reset the saw to cut the cheeks. I had to set it once for one side and then reset the miter gauge to cut the other side. And then I cut a, what did I cut? Then I cut a rip for both of the ends of the tenon, and I cut the last little pieces of wood out with my
little hand. I bought a new bit for my plunge router.
Pretty
it's the same
uniform.
router, but it's
Not
on
exactly,
plunge base.
pretty
It's
much
1/2 inch, and it's upcut, so I can stab down into the wood and move it, and stab again and move it until I drill all the way through. So now I'm trying to make myself a little guide to get some accurate results. So I'm gonna plunge it and go a little bit, and then stop, and then get a measurement. With the router against here, I plunged it and moved it ahead and took the router away. And I need 2.5 inches for these tenons. These tenons are 2.5 inches. So I need to route until I hit right here and turn the router off, and then glue another little block to stop the router. So we're gonna plunge it. Turn it on. Okay. I just need to glue another little block right there to stop the router, but this is not working. I'm gonna get a better one and glue it, and then I'll wait till all the glue dries before I route anything. Well, it's a new morning. We went to the country yesterday and delivered the new old glider, and I'm kind of glad I did, because I was going to make all 4 of these tables the same so that I could mix and match, but the new old glider is a different height off the floor than the old glider. I thought that was kind of weird. They're the same brand name, just 3 inches difference. So I'm gonna cut these legs 3 inches shorter so they fit the new old glider. And yeah, because if you keep them tall, it's weird having an end table 3 inches higher than your elbow. But anyway, I got my little jig finished. So basically, I need to clamp this in the right spot, and it should guide the router to make the hole for that tenon. Should be. Let's see. So off camera, I made 4 more legs, because when you make 2 tables, you need 8 legs, not 4. So I figured that out. And then I took the router with a little bitty round over bit and rounded over all the edges of the 8 legs, not 4. And now I'm trying to figure out where to locate the legs. So the farther out you go, the more stable the table's going to be, but it's also more of a trip hazard. So I elected to, trying to do this with one hand, come straight up as if the table was square, and locate the table leg so that this point right here is vertical from, in this case, the corner of my work table. And then I marked the 2 sides of the tenon so I can line up the jig, which is this, centered on that line and centered between these 2 marks, and I will clamp it in place and commence routing. So the router blade spins this way like this arrow. So if I feed going this way, the cutting action should hold the router against the little guide here and not pull it away. So when I pull back, I'm not going to cut, and then I'll lower and cut that direction, and then pull back and then lower and then cut that direction. And it should be pretty darn easy, especially since I got a brand new bit, and it should cut quickly. Let's try it out. I didn't go all the way through. I got to lower my little depth gauge here. Perfect.
That was so much fun. Let's watch it again. On those first two tables, I did this by drilling and chiseling. And yeah, this is better and more accurate. I don't know why I didn't do this last time, but I will next time.
Kindling pile to be burnt at the country. Now I have round tenons and I have I have round mortises. I have round mortises and square tenons. I could either round these off, which would probably be the easiest thing, but I kind of like square, so I'm going to square these off. Nobody's going to notice this, but I'm going to square them off anyway. It's a little bit more trouble, but not too much. So I'm going to do a few of them and get good at it, and then I'll film one. Okay, so we got the hole squared off, and I've got the leg the right dimension this way, but it's a little bit fat. So I'm going to put it over here. I have this little rabbet plane, which I've never ever really been able to true up correctly, but it still, I can make it work. So the difference between this plane and most planes is the blade comes all the way to the edge, so I can get all the way in the corner. All right, let's see. Do it this way. All right, so I've got one more to do, and then I'm going to sand the legs and glue them. So right now everything's upside down. The legs are sticking in the top of the table. I wanted to chisel from the top so it would be a clean chisel. The bottom's going to be kind of ugly, but that's the way it goes. The 8 legs are quick sanded with 150 grit paper. And now I'm going to stain them with my stain that I've been using for years. Because this wood's so ugly, it needs all the help it can get. It needs all the help it can get, and because it's going to make it easier for me to clean up the glue mess. Because I'll be sticking the legs from the bottom, and the glue's going to want to run down the leg. If I got stain on it, it's just that much easier to clean up.
The end of this oak plank was ripped to 1/2 inch thick, and I just got lucky, so both remaining pieces of the oak is half inch, so I just cut a bunch of random wedges and then turn around and cut them all off with the saw. Now I have like twice as many wedges as I need, but they're different thicknesses, which helps sometimes. Okay, gluing up all the joints. This is epoxy. It's sticking a little bit. I don't have a big gap problem. Everything fits pretty tight, but epoxy's like super runny, so I thicken it up a little bit, try to minimize the amount of epoxy that would drip down everywhere. Well, that's glue up time. Nothing special here. I did cut 2 notches on top of the tenons for the wedges, and I didn't show that, but I just cut them with the bandsaw. And these things fit pretty snug, and I had test fit them all ahead of time, and I had numbered them just to make sure. I think probably any of them would go in any hole, but I know they'll fit if I go by the numbers. And shoved them in there and then stood it up on the floor and drove the wedges home. It's a new day. The epoxy's cured. Boy, these new days are just rolling around so fast. Anyway, I'm gonna cut the bulk of this off with my little handsaw, and then we'll get the belt sander and flatten the top out and do a little random orbital sanding, do some stain, and get a coat of varnish on this today. These little tables are pretty simple. And then I don't have very much stain left. I hope it's enough. And I'm not trying to stain these legs again. It's just that I had to sand off some of the spilled epoxy. I'm just catching it. And I wanted to catch that end grain, which I haven't stained yet. Give it a little protection. I guess I'm gonna put some on the bottom, although, yeah, I got enough. Now we're all fixed up. We have a glider with 2 end tables that double as TV trays, which we don't have a TV though. And the other glider, and I got rid of the little table that was here before. I sold it, and now we have a fold-out extra room for cooking. And I varnished it when we left the other day, and it's nice and dry. So it's all good. Thanks for watching. Oh yeah, the cushions. So this is a standard size bench, so I could just order cushions off the internet, and I saw that Home Depot had these for like $25. I said, man, I could gamble $25. So, and they said they had 11 of them in the store I visit. So I went, and they said they had none. Got back on the internet, ordered them to be delivered to my house for an extra like $3, and they came from the same store that just said they didn't have any. So I bought one to try it out because it was kind of cheap. So then I ordered another one, and the store called and said they didn't have any. And I said, look, you guys, I went to the store. You said you didn't have any. I ordered them. They came from your store. Figure it out. So the next day they came on a truck from my store. So I don't know what's going on with that, but they're kind of chinchy. They're not as nice as the red ones, but they were like the square root of the cost of the custom ones. So we're going to live with them for a while.